Welcome to the Umbra Vortex, where whispers begin and screams never end. Beyond this point, only madness awaits. This isn't a place for comfort, only for truth. Not the kind found in books or muttered in confession, but a raw, unfiltered reality, cloaked in shadow, stitched with dread, and pulsing just beneath the skin of sanity. I'm Edward J. Hallow, and I'll be the last voice you hear before the silence consumes you. Tonight, you'll hear a tale of a man slowly consumed by madness, driven not by the demons outside, but by the ones that grew within him. A tale where affection turns to cruelty, and a harmless pet becomes an embodiment of a tormented soul. This is the story of the Black Cat, a man, a crime, and the dreadful consequences that followed. I was once a man who knew love, not the fleeting kind that lingers only in the sunlight, but a deep, abiding love that stretched from my childhood into adulthood. Animals had always been a part of my life, dogs, birds, rabbits, but none more beloved than Pluto, my black cat. He was sleek, graceful, and the deepest shade of midnight. His fur shimmered faintly in the candlelight, and his eyes glowed with an almost supernatural fire, as if they could pierce the very soul. We became inseparable, he and I, two kindred spirits in a world that could often be cruel and unrelenting. But even the purest love can fade, and something dark began to take root within me. At first it was only a whisper, a growing restlessness that I could not place. Over time, though, I began to drink. At first it was a drink or two after work, a way to unwind. But soon the wine turned into whiskey, and before I knew it, I was drowning in spirits. What once was a man of calm and kindness was now a slave to his own desires, an unrecognizable shadow of himself. The transformation was gradual. My temper grew shorter, and the moments of anger became longer, more violent. My love for Pluto faded under the weight of the bottle. Where I once admired him, I now resented him. His presence reminded me of the man I had once been, a man I no longer recognized. One fateful evening, after an especially heavy binge, I stumbled into the living room where Pluto lay waiting, as he often did, curled up on the armchair by the fire. But something was different tonight. His usually trusting eyes looked at me with something strange, fear. It wasn't just a fleeting emotion, it was genuine terror. I was too far gone to understand why. Instead, it sent a surge of rage through my veins. The cat was avoiding me. I saw it in the way he flinched as I approached, in the way he tried to escape my reach. My hands trembled with fury, and before I knew it, I had seized him by the scruff of his neck. As he scratched at my hand in a desperate attempt to defend himself, my madness escalated. In one violent movement, I gouged out one of his eyes. He didn't cry out. There was no shriek of pain, just the wet thud of my hand meeting his fragile body. But the silence that followed was worse than any scream. I stared at him, his torn face, his helpless body, and I felt nothing but disgust. Disgust for the creature that had once been my companion, and for myself, a man now irreversibly twisted by his own darkness. The days that followed were filled with an eerie quiet. Pluto no longer greeted me with his usual affection. Instead, he avoided me, cowering in the darkest corners of the house. I had broken him, not just physically, but emotionally. The cat that had once sought my presence now recoiled in terror at my approach. The more he fled, the more my hatred grew. And so, in the darkest recesses of my mind, a plan was born. One night, consumed by rage and desperation, I tied a rope around Pluto's neck. I took him to the backyard, the place where he had once played, where he had once purred contentedly in the sun. There, under the cover of darkness, I hanged him from a tree. I watched as the life drained from his eyes, the once glowing embers fading to nothing. As I stood over his lifeless body, something inside me broke. That same night, the house caught fire. It was a small mercy, perhaps, that my wife and I managed to escape unharmed. Our servant, too, found a way out. But the fire consumed everything, our home, our belongings, our memories. The house burned to the ground, its walls crumbling into ash. But when the smoke cleared and the flames died down, there was one thing that stopped me cold. On the only wall left standing, untouched by the flames, was the unmistakable shape of a cat. The figure was burned into the plaster, its body suspended in mid-air with a noose still wrapped around its neck. It was as if the very essence of Pluto had returned to haunt me. For a moment, I felt a chill run down my spine, a prickling at the back of my neck. But I was quick to dismiss it. My mind was already searching for an explanation. Perhaps someone had tossed the cat's body through the window during the fire. Maybe the flames had created a strange shadow. I told myself anything to avoid confronting the truth. The guilt, however, refused to let me be. In a desperate attempt to rid myself of the torment, I sought out another cat, a black one like Pluto. I found it at a tavern, drunk and lonely, and I brought it home. At first, it seemed to offer me the solace I sought, but soon I began to see something strange. This new cat, though missing one eye just like Pluto, was not quite the same. On its chest there was a patch of white fur. I tried to ignore it, to convince myself it was nothing more than a coincidence. But as the days went on, the white patch began to shift. It formed into something familiar, something dreadful, the shape of a gallows, a noose, a constant reminder of the terrible thing I had done. The cat's presence gnawed at me. It haunted every corner of the house. Its eyes seemed to watch me, always watchful, always knowing. I could feel its gaze, heavy and accusing, even when I turned away. The more I saw it, the more I loathed it. But what disturbed me most was the way it made me feel. It was as if it were a physical manifestation of my guilt, a mirror of my broken soul. One evening, driven to the edge by fear and loathing, I grabbed an axe. I would end this torment. I would kill the cat and rid myself of this madness once and for all. But as I raised the axe, my wife, in her usual gentle way, tried to intervene. She begged me to stop. Her voice was a whisper of reason in the storm of my insanity. But I couldn't bear it. Her pleas only drove me deeper into fury. In a fit of rage, I turned on her. Without thinking, I struck her down. She fell to the ground with a sickening thud, her body limp and lifeless, and for the briefest moment, I felt free. The cat had disappeared. No longer did it stalk me, its eyes glistening with an unsettling knowledge. The house was quiet again. I hid her body in the cellar, sealing her away behind a wall of bricks. As I stood there, my hands trembling with the weight of what I had done, a strange sense of relief washed over me. The oppressive presence of the cat was gone. I thought I could finally rest. But my peace would not last. 4 days later, the police arrived. They searched the house, asking questions, looking for clues. They could find nothing. I led them to the cellar, confident that my secret was safe. But as we stood in front of the wall I had so carefully constructed, I couldn't help but feel an icy dread creep over me. I struck the wall with my hand, boasting of its strength, of the silence it had kept. That's when I heard it. A deep, resonating sound. A low, rhythmic thumping. It came from behind the wall, as if something was beating against it. A sound so unnatural, so haunting, that my blood turned cold. The officers looked at me with confusion, but I could not move. I was paralyzed with fear. They tore the wall down, and as the bricks fell away, I saw her, my wife's lifeless body, her pale face twisted in horror. But there was something else, something far worse. There, perched atop her head, was the cat. The same cat. And its eyes, those eyes, they gleamed with an unholy light, a judgment that pierced me to my very soul. In that moment, I knew. It wasn't just the cat that lingered. It was something else, something darker, something that had quietly woven itself into the very fabric of my being. The cat, though ever present, was only a reflection of that which I could no longer outrun. A shadow that followed me, unseen yet felt, a constant weight that pressed upon my every step. Now I am adrift, consumed by an inescapable force I cannot name, trapped in a place where even silence carries its own weight of judgment. The eyes that once lingered in the shadows now follow me everywhere. As the quiet thickens and the whispers of the past grow louder, I feel it drawing nearer, just beyond my grasp. Some things refuse to stay buried. They rise, relentless, from places once thought sealed forever. This was the black cat, a tale of obsession that became a noose, tightening with every passing moment. I am Edward J. Hallow, and if something shadows your steps tonight, don't look back. Some sins lie buried, others claw their way out.